Hello, and welcome to another virtual author event at the Poison Pen Bookstore. I'm John Charles, and we're delighted to have with us today two of our favorite authors, Tori Eldridge, who's here with her new book, and J.T. Ellison, who is here with some questions for her friend Tori. Before I turn it over to J.T., I do want to let those tuning in know that we do have copies of Tori's latest book, The Ninja Betrayed, with bookmarks, book plates signed by the author, and the author is also going to talk about a few special giveaways later in the program. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tori Eldridge and J.T. Ellison.
Thanks so much, John. It's so great to be here. And J.T., love you, woman.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm messing with my thing because I want to actually be looking at you and not at myself, which is very creepy. Welcome to Zoom.
Thank you. You look lovely. Look at you, all bright and wearing jade.
I wanted to match the cover of the book. It was very important to be thematic tonight, right?
You are almost exactly the color. That, and I've got my jade on, and I'm in this spooky dark lighting because I'm on the road. I'm actually in Scottsdale in my cousin's home. And so I've got this spooky September lighting.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So, since we started with I matched the cover. Let's talk about the cover really quick.
My gosh, I would love to talk about the cover.
Because it's going to lead us into everything else, because obviously every element of this story is represented in the cover. But all of your covers are really, really cool. This one especially, I felt like just really encapsulated the story. How did you guys land on this branding? A, B, tell me a little bit about the story and what each of those. Yeah, I'm holding up my fist because Hong Kong. Okay.
I know, right? I love it. Well, I'm so fortunate. Not all authors have input in their cover. Sometimes it's like, do you like A or B? And you say A and they go with B, and it's like, deal with it. You don't always get a lot of that. But the folks at Polis Agora are amazing. Right off the bat, it was like with the Ninja Daughter, that's the yellow one, they were saying, what are the colors? And I'm like, the colors are Chinese gold, red, and ninja black. And we tried something with kind of an image in the background, and that didn't work. And then the designer came up with this thing with these 8 quadrants. And I was like, whoa. And they had asked me about symbols. And so I had, put forth a number of, weapons and icons and things that were related to the story. So in the first one, they came back with all these ninja weapons. And I thought, oh, this is super cool, but there's only ninja weapons. And so I didn't want it to seem like ninja pulp, because that's what I was trying to bust away from. Right. And with Lily Wong, her being Chinese and Norwegian in a Japanese art, there's this cultural push-pull. And so I wanted that represented in the book. So the first book has a Chinese dragon and a Japanese lion. And so if you understand the book, you might notice that tidbit. Well, in the second book, the ninja's blade, they put in this awesome tiger and all these cool things, and of course the red. When it came for this book, I said, what do you think the color should be? Well, in this book, Lily and Ma go to Hong Kong. Well, if you know anything about her mother, she wears this amazing jade jewelry. Mm-hmm. She has these jade earrings. She has this signature jade bracelet with the celestial guardians on it. And even her wedding ring is jade with diamonds. And so when I think of Ma, I always think of jade. And so it became trying to find the right shade of green that really said jade and not army or green or pandemic or we didn't want to send the wrong message, right? Especially because there's a monkey on the cover, green monkey pandemic. We were like, no, that's not the message at all. So we wanted to make sure it was jade. And the monkey is because that is, her mother is the year of the monkey, and the scorpion, I'm not going to tell you. And it's a secret. You have to read the book and find out. Well, but people don't. And over here we have the protesters, because it takes place in a pro-democracy struggle. And down here we have Lily's Lily. And over here we have Yep, Hong Kong. Up here we have Mahjong because, and her mother is the Los Angeles director of the grandfather's Hong Kong International Finance Company. So there's a Chinese coin. Actually, a Hong Kong coin, I should say.
Hong Kong coin. I loved it. I mean, when I saw it to start with, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to figure out what's going to be in the story. And sure enough, it was a really good representation. They're doing a great job with your portrayal. So congrats. That's always important.
Thank you, Agora Books Polis.
Would you, not everybody knows the significance of jade for the culture. Could you explain that a little bit?
Oh goodness, that's an interesting thing. When I think of anything to do with China, I always think, just bound in there with jade. Jade is involved in fortune and love and good luck, and there's so many meanings behind it. So much of the the art is carved into jade. There are all shades of jade. So whenever I think of that, like, my mother, she passed away. And, our moms, we passed down jewelry, and jewelry is very important in Chinese culture. And of course it became who gets which jade, right? And we all had our favorite pieces of jade, and so it's something that's like very meaningful, I think. Especially to Chinese Americans, I think.
Oh, it's so incredibly cool. Well, I jumped so far ahead because I'm going to rewind.
Okay.
It's release week. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Your book is out. You're like bona fide now.
I'm
right?
bona fide?
Not
oh my gosh.
anymore. You've got, we'll talk about it later. You've got that fourth book, and there is, kind of a thing in the industry that it takes 4 books to make a writer.
Well, this is 3. This is 3. I'm writing the 4th.
You're on.
Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're here now.
Oh my.
That's very cool.
All right, y'all, you hear that? J.T. freaking Ellison just said I was bona fide. I'm taking that one to the bank.
You put it on the website. JT says bona fide.
I'm pretty much gonna put it on my website.
So funny. Okay, so the story is absolutely amazing, and I want you to tell us a little bit about it. But it's got, I mean, you've got a lot going on in this book. And on the background, you have the Hong Kong protests and everything. So tell us a little bit about where we find Lily in this 3rd book in the series, what her state of mind is, and what's going on.
Okay, great. So all the books follow close after each other. So the 3rd book takes place a month after the 2nd book. And if you've read the 2nd book, you'd know we were going to Hong Kong because her mother has been summoned. And so Lily is joining her because the father has to run the restaurant, because uncle, who runs the sous chef type cook, is in Shanghai visiting family. And so Baba has to stay at home. So Lily and her mother are going to Hong Kong, and it's exciting because they're going to stay with the grandparents, Gong Gong and Popo, in this beautiful Hong Kong island place. And the guy that they've been setting Lily up with, Daniel Kwok, happens to be in Hong Kong on business. So it's looking to be a very good trip. And of course, that's not at all how it works out, because it's Lily Wong. And, yeah, nothing's easy with this woman. So it turns out that her mother is under corporate attack, basically. And a lot of the people who are attacking her are supposed to be family friends. And so it's like, well, what is going on? So Lily is trying to protect her emotionally, is trying to get to the bottom of this by basically investigating her grandfather's partners and company, while at the same time, her grandfather's driver, who was inspired by my son's driver in Shanghai, really? I might add. Yes, a lovely man, and so I love this guy, this driver, and he has a teenage daughter who's getting sucked into activism with, the protests. So of course, now Lily's got a teenager to deal with. And then of course, like I said, there's this romance thing. And if you know anything about Lily Wong, dating is a lot scarier than fighting. She'd rather face the Ukrainian mobs in Los Angeles than deal with dating. So it's a big deal and it's a struggle. So she's got family, she's got romance, she's got all that baggage and issues, so many things to overcome. She's got this teenager to look out for, and this gorgeous environment, and this dating and family and the puzzle. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Food, and so much food.
So much food. so much food. And sex tonic boba.
I know,
right?
Crazy.
I want some of that.
So for the folks who may not know, who may be finding you on this book, which is the third book in the series, tell us a little bit about who Lily is and who she is to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, Lily appeared on a page when I was writing a short story. So I didn't set out to write something so close to me. I was writing this scene and out came this woman and I went, oh, what do you know about that? This is actually a ninja, and we're seeing the origin story of this mission. And oh, what do you know? She appears to be mixed Asian, and and gee, after that short story was published, I thought, I know exactly the scene where this is taking place, and it's in the beginning of a novel, and that novel begins a series, and then it just became a question of when are you going to write this series. So as it turns out, she does draw rather closely from me. My mother is Chinese Hawaiian from Maui. My father is Norwegian from North Dakota. They met and married in Tokyo, where both of my sisters were born before they moved to Honolulu and had me. So if you take the Hawaiian out of the equation, we have that Chinese, that North Dakota, Norwegian, Midwest type of thing. And we have the Japanese, which was so important in my family and is, of course, so important in Lily's ninja martial arts, right? So she has this wonderful, rich cultural family and complicated family dynamic that's going on. That's one aspect of the books. The other aspect is having a real authentic view of modern day ninja, not the sensationalized guys in black pajamas, scurrying across Ruth, assassin. I dig all that stuff, by the way. I totally dig it, but that's not what I was going for here. I wanted people to understand that, there are people like me, thousands of us all around the world, practicing the ninja arts for the betterment of humanity. I don't know a single assassin. And so I kind of wanted to bust through that and have action, thriller, and all this kind of authentic ninja stuff. So that's two. And then the third balance of these three balance thing was that I wanted to have like intriguing mysteries. I wanted some sleuthing involved. I want you to have to puzzle out that kind of thing. And so the trick was balancing all of these equally, because generally speaking, you don't get this in-depth cultural family dynamic in an action thriller. No, that's just not, you need a historical fiction or something, or literary fiction. So that's kind of the goal. And so Lily, when her back in her backstory, when her sister is raped and murdered, Lily drops out of college. She stops competing in wushu. She dedicates herself completely to ninjutsu and becoming a protector of women and children, so that she can, in essence, become a big sister to a city where she, in her mind, failed as a big sister to her sister.
I love authors who genuinely understand exactly what they're doing with their work, and you know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. Will you, because I'm fascinated by this, and I'm sure everybody else is as well. You are a ninja, and I think all of our experience with ninjas is with, people popping in and cutting people's heads off, and that's not what it is. And it is a sacred path. And I would be really interested to hear more about what that path is and how you found yourself on it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the ninja arts are passed down through 9 different lineages over centuries, from feudal Japan, and even before that from China with the Tendai Buddhists who came in, and so all of these things are passed down. And some of the lineages deal with combat, most of them with strategy, espionage, things of that nature. And then it all comes through the actual martial art, the physical arts that comes down to taijutsu, which is a body movement, is, from what I have experienced in my martial arts experience, the most comprehensive You talk about mixed martial arts, the ninja got you beat. I mean, we are armed, we are unarmed, we are archaic weapons, we are modern weapons, we are like how to use tabi-sat, which by the way, I'm going to be giving away to somebody who asks a question. You know, we deal with fighting on the ground. We deal with fighting in the air. People throw me in the air a lot and they pick me up because I'm little. And so I learned to fight in the air, and that's kind of fun. So it's very comprehensive. Myself, I started in Tong Soo-do, you know, Chuck Norris type karate, Tong Soo-do. And I had teachers who were also experienced in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing. And so in addition to that, I also did private lessons in that and in Eskrima. And then I discovered Toshindo ninja arts, which is the modern evolution of ninja arts. So how to adapt it into modern day. Founded by Stephen K. Hayes and his wife, Rumiko Urata Hayes. And I discovered that at the same time I was approaching my black belt in Tong Soo-do, because I had just like skyrocketed up from this, you know, experience as a dancer. I just took to karate real fast. Okay. And so, you know, I had to kind of wait around for 1.5 years before I was permitted to test for my black belt. And so in that time, I decided to pick up another art and do them both at the same time. As it turned out, I ended up getting a black belt in both arts within a month of each other, which was kind of funny. So that's how I found this art. And after that, I was just like, oh, this is it. This is it for me. And I just stuck with it. You know, 5-degree black belts later.
That's wild to me. It's just wild to me. And
I also got to do wushu. My eldest son went to UCLA, which is why Lily went to UCLA. And my eldest son ended up being the captain of the wushu team, which is why Lily got to, you know, be such a competitor. And I was privileged enough to be able to join them in a class. And so his teacher, not at UCLA, it was a private wushu dojang, I forget what they call it. The seafood there, was willing to just teach me spear, because long weapons are my favorite. And that's what I specialize in, the staff and the spear. And so he said, yeah, no, I am absolutely happy to just teach you spear, which is very uncommon. So.
Are there videos on your website that people can go and watch you doing this? Because it's
totally
cool.
Totally. Okay. If you go to torieldridge.com, I have a readers page, and it has super cool stuff, including a couple of videos of me doing ninja stuff.
Perfect. That's awesome. Okay, so I want to talk about the series, because I have theories about series, and I'm curious if you feel like, because you are in your third book, if you feel like that there are any limitations that you put on her that you have to now start unwinding. Here's my theory about series. Okay. The first book, everything's great. We're introducing everyone. Everybody gets to meet and mingle. All good. Second book, they all get to do something together for the first time, you know, as a chosen team, right? Third book, you realize all the things you did wrong in the first book and the second book, setting up the series, and you have to make all of these changes. And then the fourth book in the series is where the series really starts, because that's where you actually settled into the story. And now you know. And I've done 3 series now, and it happened every single time. So I'm curious if you've ever had that thought and realized, oh, wait, what have I done? Oh, no. Which I don't think you're very intentional. I'm not. So I maybe you aren't.
That's hilarious. I love that description. That whole progression is so funny. You know, no, I have not run into that. It's you know, I set up everybody in there in the first one. In the first one, the relationship is heaviest between Lily and her father. The second one, the relationship has a little bit more of her mother. And of course, the grandparents come into town, so you get more of that. And the third one is very much focused on the relationship between Lily and her mother, and being able to see her mother and her grandparents. So in each book, you learn more about certain relationships. And there's also a character that appears in the third book. I'm not going to mention who it is. And you learn a whole lot about him, and he's very interesting. And so in the fourth book, it will be like that again. There's a character that you're going to learn more about. and things like that. So each one, I think the reason I haven't run into trouble is this. My protagonist is 25 years old, and I chose 25 because it is the most volatile age for change and growth. At least it certainly was in my life, and it was as I watched, as I watched my adult sons. So it's one of those things where Lily is constantly in a state of change and growth and reassessment and doubt and authority and confidence, and she's completely fluctuating with this. So there are so many things for her to learn and discover about herself, about the people around her, about her relationships. And this book is obviously very heavily in relationships, that I don't feel like, it just feels very open-ended at this point. I think the only interesting limitation that I'm finding with the fourth book, because the fourth book, I'm seeing this big international thriller, like action thriller kind of a thing. And I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if I could pop into somebody else's head? But no, Lily Wong books are all first-person Lily. So that's something that it's like, that's something I don't feel I can break. It's like, well, I established that. I don't know. Can I, JT? Do I have permission? Yes. I do. I can, maybe.
I'm in third person. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ooh. You can always do that. There aren't, you make the rules. You make the rules. Nobody else.
So empowered.
Good. But yeah, just if you need to have a third person, if you need to have somebody else's point of view, and that's what a thriller, that's the difference between mysteries and thrillers and suspense and thrillers, is the number of point of views and how everybody gets to see the story. So yes.
Did you ever do this in any of yours?
Dispensation granted.
Yeah. Were any of yours in the first person? Any of your series, were they all in a close third?
They're all in close third.
Okay, because I've got a Brazilian horror standalone coming out in May, and that's close third in multiple personality, in points of view, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm looking at this fourth book. I'm going to have to talk to my editor, but I know I can do it exclusively from Lily's, but I might be tempted. It just depends on how this kind of lays out. So we'll see. But thank you, JT. I feel much more empowered now.
Well, it opens the tapestry a little bit, mm-hmm. you get to bring in a few golden threads to weave mm-hmm. through it that other books wouldn't have. Yes, you have permission.
This is true. And maybe on the fourth book, it's like, now would be the time.
See, now you know. Now I'm not wrong. My theory is not wrong.
I like this.
We both write female leads.
Yes.
And I despise the term strong female lead.
Oh,
it drives me crazy because I feel like all women are strong. I mean, we exist in a world, we have to be strong. Mm. I think that it's more that our fictional female heroes are extraordinary in some way. And that makes them, universally admired and desired. And I think Lily fits into that. And you had sent me a question that I thought was really interesting about male readers and female readers and how they are both attracted to Lily. And talk to me a little bit about that. Are you thinking about the reader when you're writing her about, hey, this is going to appeal to my male readers. This is going to appeal to my female readers. What is your thought process when you're thinking about that, writing from the character who is an extraordinary female lead?
Yeah, well, number one, I like that extraordinary female lead. I'm going to stick with that one too. Yep. I don't know about it as a hashtag, but yeah, definitely, I like that one. Yep. I do think about my readers sometime. I don't think in terms of my female readers will like this and my male readers will like that. But here's the thing: when I was teaching, and I was privileged to be invited to teach seminars, around the country. And the majority of the people that I were teaching were men. And a lot of those men were military and law enforcement and pretty much badass ninja. And so, at some point you get to feel pretty comfortable, in that world and with guys. And I've always been pretty comfortable, in that world. And it just never, was never proving myself as a woman. It was just like, yeah, I belong here and everything. And there was just this mutual respect and all this kind of stuff. So when I set out to write the books, I guess I just kind of assumed, right, that's how it would be, so, and it was like, and if guys don't dig Lily, well, they're lost, whatever. And so, yeah, right, whatever. So I just, kind of did my book the way I would have taught a seminar. I just like, wrote it, and this is how Lily is, and blah, blah, blah. And the interesting thing is, I have as many, I think, from what I can tell, men digging and reading Lily Wong as I do women. I literally just came from teaching a class at a ninja dojo, and of course all but one of them were men, and they were all there like, yeah, teach us secrets, and yes, here's our book, sign it. So that really makes me feel good that we're living in a time where, because I used to, love reading about, men, action, heroes and stuff. And I love that men are really enjoying reading about Lily,
And what's interesting is
Cool.
she is in a very patriarchal society, especially in this book, where her mother is being supplanted by, her own father. I just found that really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Hong Kong obviously plays a huge role in this book.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear about the research that you did. Clearly you've been. I mean, you didn't do that on Google Earth, trust me. And I want to talk about the protests. So if you can talk about how you wove Hong Kong into this story, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. Well, right from the beginning, I always knew that if the series went on long enough, Lily would have to go to Hong Kong, because that's where her mother is from. And that's where I kept steering all these relationships. And so when I was writing the second book and her parents came to visit, and they had that whole conversation over mahjong and were arguing about the pro-democracy stuff and everything, I'm like, well, clearly the third book, we're going, that's where we're headed, boy. And because I weave fiction into fact, everything that happens to Lily happens in like the last 10 days or last week, somewhere like that, in September 2019. So I had to research what specifically went on at 2019 in regards to the pro-democracy struggle in Hong Kong. I also needed to have an overall view of what started it, what perpetuated it, what were the big key incidents that happened along the way, what were the different points of view of Hong Kongers about this situation, because, obviously, just like us in America, we don't all have the same, interpretation of what's going on around us. And it was very important to me that the reader experience this through many eyes and many points of view, because I didn't have an agenda. I didn't have a point of view that I was trying to give to the reader. I wanted the reader to see many points of view and look at this situation and get a feel for themselves, especially since you're reading it now in 2021 with the hindsight to be able to say, wow, look at what's happened to Hong Kong now. Look at what, China, the freedoms that China has taken back. Look at the national security law that now Hong Kong is under, where these youthful protesters who were so pivotal in Hong Kong, kids who are 19, 20, 21, 22, who were such powerful activists that they were actually able to start political parties and run for office in Hong Kong, are now under such scrutiny with the national security law that some of them have been arrested and put in prison. Many of those political parties have had to close down, and the leaders have had to leave Hong Kong. So we're looking at what happened in September 2019, which was the height of the pro-democracy struggle, before this all happened with China and enacting the national security law. So it was really fascinating to me to be able to look at that, and to be a writer. I wrote it in 2020 with a little bit of hindsight, and then knowing that the readers would have even greater hindsight to look into that. So it was a lot of research. You're right. And I had to research a whole lot of stuff, because also I like people to have a sense of place and everything. And I've been there, which, by the way, you did impeccably well with Her Dark Lies, because you set it in Italy. Now it was a fictional island, but it was so Italy. You know, I mean, how did you do that?
Well, I think the same way that you did. I mean, when you're there, you get a sense for how things smell and how they sound. And you know, you have to use all of your senses when you're creating a setting, or else it just falls flat. And you know, you say, "Oh, here we are in Hong Kong in the pro-democracy." No, I mean, it was very, very clear that you had been there, that you had brought the whole thing together, and that's, you know, that's what a great character setting can be. Hong Kong is a character in this book. Italy was a character in Her Dark Lights. I mean, it's just, and that's, for me, that's fun. Characters are a blast. Setting is vital to me.
Yes.
Every book, setting is hugely, hugely important for me.
Do you start with setting? I mean, is that one of the like first things when you know you're going to write a book?
It's pretty early on. Yeah, I need to know, because, you know, if it's someplace that I need to go,
yeah,
to figure out what it sounds like and smells like and everything, then, you know, I've got to budget time for that, for the research and everything.
Yeah.
Usually I'll go somewhere and then write the book afterward. Every once in a while I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to take the book to here. You know, we've got to go to Scotland. Oh darn, you know. I'm sure
yeah, me too. So setting comes really far in advance. Sometimes, like if for this book, I knew Lily and Ma go to Hong Kong family business. That was it. So, you know, then the next step is, you know, doing some research, or in this particular case, I went on a couple of hikes to really kind of work through what that was with the family business. With the fourth book that I'm writing now, I have the same thing. Lily is headed to this place, and I have an idea of who's going to be in this thing, and I have an idea of what it's going to entail, but mostly it's that setting. And so I'm right now in the research, you know, just collecting as much just open-ended research so that ideas of characters and plot and things and setting and location start to come up, and out of that organically, magically comes a story. Yeah. So
right. I've got a new standalone that for some odd reason, I mean, it's just noodling. It's an inklet. It's not even it's just such a tiny little idea. So tiny. And for some reason this morning, because I'm working on 2 other books, I'm not working on this book. And for some reason this morning, the opening line popped in my head over breakfast. And I'm like, oh, so I had to write that down. I have no idea where this book is set because I'm not to that point of even thinking about it. But now that it's starting to talk, I'm going to have to figure out where it's set very, very quickly.
Yeah. You know, I like that you mentioned that you're writing 2 other books, because if I'm not mistaken, they're in different genres, right? One of them is in this kind of supernatural, urban fantasy thing. And the other one is another standalone, or is it one of your series?
It's one of the series. It's the next story in the Taylor Jackson series.
Okay. Which is crime fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Thriller.
So
yeah, straight up, you know, thriller, and this one's even international. So
yeah, okay. So here you are in a combination of genres. See, I love authors like you, because you give me, you know, strength to do what I want to do, which is write a whole bunch of things, because a lot of my short stories were in horror and were in fantasy and things like that. And so I never set out to be a crime fiction author. I never set out to, I always kind of knew it was going to be thriller. So that I did kind of know. But, you know, so even with the Lily Wong series, they're not straight up action thriller or straight up mystery or straight up culture. They're already blending. And then this one that's coming out in May is like literary horror set in Brazil. You know, it's like,
sounds so awesome.
So when your newest one is this urban fantasy, which is super cool. And you're doing it with a partner and everything, but you're still doing it under, you guys have a combined name. Did you have pushback? Did you have to, you know, was it difficult to be able to do that? What did you run into?
Pushback is a good word. Pushback is a good word. Stay in your lane, JT. That's another good word. I think, you know, when we look at the really, really big, important authors in our genres, they all have something in common. They are writing a series that is set either in a particular setting or with a particular character. And they have within those books, they delve into other genres inside of the series. I started in series, wrote one series, got tired of it, wrote another series, co-wrote with Catherine Coulter 6 books in a series, and then realized, okay, I've written serial killers, I've written horror, I've written international intrigue, I've written gothics, I've written suspense, I've written mysteries. I don't know what I am. So instead of trying to put myself into the box of I am this, I was like, well, I might as well go ahead and try the urban fantasy now too. Because I've done all the other genres in crime fiction. Let's go do fantasy. And I love fantasy. I am, and in fantasy and in crime fiction, in every story, I love an ordinary woman who is suddenly forced into an extraordinary situation and has to become a leader. That is just my jam. And all of my stories have that element to them. And so maybe that's my thematic link. I've got a thematic link instead of a character or a setting. Mine's a thematic link. That, no matter what I'm doing, it is a woman getting into an extraordinary situation.
Yeah. With me too, it's like, my agent was like, okay, you can write whatever you want. How are we bringing it all together? And I'm like, empowerment. I have always been and always will be about empowerment, whether I'm looking at it from the light or the dark, whether, and there's always going to be these extraordinary women. There's some kick butt men, believe me, but there's always going to be, these extraordinary women in there. And so, and I like that. I remember Jonathan Mayberry once said, my brand is me.
And he is super smart, and he's absolutely right. So, I mean, there is, it's very, very easy, because it's much easier to market somebody when you know what you're marketing.
Yeah.
When you have folks like me who, kind of go off piste every once in a while, and the market people are like, what do we do with this? I don't know what to do with this, right? And so that's why I did the urban fantasy under a pen name. And it's the girl who co-wrote the first book with me is not going to be writing the rest of the series. She helped me get that up and running. And helped me build the world. And I've got another co-writer who is coming in. The co-writing is actually a really important thing for me. I got so much out of my relationship with Catherine, so much out of, I learned a lot about writing, about readers, about how to do things for the readers that I wasn't thinking about. She's a very intentional writer as well. So I learned so much, and I felt like she had kind of reached down the ladder and pulled me up. And I feel like it's incumbent upon me to reach down the ladder and pull other people up. And I had a chance to do that in this urban fantasy realm. I had too many deadlines and I couldn't write the book. But the rules about stories, right? If you don't write them, the little ideas, they walk away and somebody else will do them. And Jane Thorne is a CIA librarian who's magic. And that's, it was just something I had to do. So we got it out. Alicia is doing her own thing now. And I am now working with a writer named R.L. Perez, who is absolutely brilliant. And the next book comes out in July of next year, and we're releasing a short story in the series on October 31st. So,
how cool. See, I love that. There's so many things I love about what you just said. I love the paying it forward. That is just, this speaks to me so much. And when you were talking about, people like you who, branch out here, and people are like, what are you doing? I remember J.D. Barker. J.D. Barker said, because he writes in thrillers and he writes in horror, and he got good advice early on. And I heard his good advice, which was, if you're going to break out and do something like that, do it soon. Yeah. So that's why I was like, okay, third Lily Wong book, 6 months later, you're going to get my Brazilian horror. And now you're going to know, I don't have a lane. Don't put me in a lane.
Here's the fun thing, because it's been 2 of our big mystery stores Murder by the Book and our lovely, wonderful friends at Poison Pen, who have been my biggest cheerleaders on the fantasy.
Yeah.
Both
I'm
Barbara
not surprised.
and John McDougall have both been just huge cheerleaders and encouraged me, and that is invaluable. When you have somebody who gets, oh, hey, they're trying to do something different, we're going to support them. I mean, bless you guys.
Yeah.
Bless you. It means so much to us as authors when we take a chance and you step up and take a chance with us.
That is so true. I was in Poison Pen writing this stack of books, which is so exciting to me. I mean, I know you write thousands, but I was really excited to be surrounded by these stacks of books. And as I'm writing, I'm talking with, Patrick, and I'm telling him what's coming. And he's like, oh, great. And, it's just the support and the love of independent bookstores like, the Poison Pen and all the booksellers, owner Barbara and Patrick and Pat and Sean. And, it's just like, oh man, it just makes it all so wonderful. That and interacting with the readers. I just really dig the whole connection. That's the thing that surprised me most about what I love. Oh, by the way, y'all out there, if you have questions, I just want you to know I'm giving away 2 prizes, right? So to somebody, I'm not choosing them. That's up to the bookstore. People who ask questions, but you have to have bought or are buying now the Ninja Betrayed. And of course, they're all signed. And I can personalize them for you if you want. The first one is this Tabi sock. I don't know if you can see it, but there are paw prints. There are paw prints on it for a reason, right, JT? There are paw. I know, isn't that cute?
That is. That's awesome.
And the other one is just this little bundle of fun things. Yuzu. It's kind of a citrusy incense with this Lucky Charm bracelet and a little thing of green tea. So this goes to 2 people who come up with some very cool questions. So I'm just throwing it out.
I think that's our perfect time to bring John back in and see if we have any. I know we're actually, it's time. It's time.
Oh, holy cow. We've just been chatting. Everybody's listening. It's as though they just stepped into and we just went off on our own trip having a conversation. I hope everybody found it interesting because I did. I asked you what I want to know.
So let's see, do we have some questions from the audience?
We do have a couple questions.
Awesome.
The first question is for both of you. And that question is, what is the best piece of advice about writing you've ever received?
No, JT, I'm going to let you go first.
I actually dropped it earlier in the conversation that we had. So Stuart Woods has famously in the back of his books, do not write me and ask me questions. And I'm a contrarian, and I saw that and I'm like, I'm going to ask him a question because I needed to know, just like you were asking, is it okay to switch later on and bring in another point of view? I needed to know if it was okay to bring in a main character for a book 15 chapters in. Like we've already established this whole world, and now I'm going to bring in a main character. Am I allowed to do that? He wrote me back immediately. He was on some yacht somewhere and he had Wi-Fi, and he wrote me back, which I was so shocked. And he said, you make the rules page by page.
Ooh.
So earlier when I said you make the rules, that was the advice that I got. And it just opened every door. I studied creative writing, and all the rules that I was taught, I like threw into a little pile and had a nice little burn party. And then I started doing it the way I wanted to. So that's.
I love that. It really plays into my ninja training, actually. And it also plays in on my background as a professional singer and a dancer and an actor and things like that, but especially dance and especially martial arts and especially ninja martial arts, which is you need a foundation. You need a foundation and a structure on which to build. But that's not the place that you create. You have all that under your belt so that you can then live in the moment, break free from those rules and that structure, and invent and be creative. And that's what we do in the ninja arts, which is what makes it so difficult to master, is that it's all about the relationship in that moment, in that time, with that particular person that you're in this altercation with. And I find that with writing, everything from me comes organically from that character. So it's not so much what do I want to say, it's what does Lily want to say. even when I was trying to figure out her parents, it's like, who are these parents? Well, this is Lily. What kind of parents would she have? It's like reverse engineering. Everything like comes from that. How does she fight? Well, it's not how do I fight, it's how does Lily fight? You know, and if I have other people fighting, how did they fight? What is organic to that character? And so I think, you know, when I write best when I'm going from the inside out, when I'm thinking organically of that character in that situation, rather than from the outside in of a writer trying to write this thing and put on that. So that's something that I like to think about when I'm writing. When it comes to advice, what I usually tell people is to try and enjoy the process. If you can enjoy the process and not worry so much about the result, this is going to be a lot more enjoyable for you, because becoming a novelist is a marathon. I mean, every now and again, you get one of those outliers who it just like magically happens. But for most of us, it takes a while. And you'll reduce the stress if you can just enjoy the act of creation and try not to get so hung up on, you know, what's going to happen with it.
Superb advice.
Oh.
Our next question is for Tori, and it's: food plays an important role in your books. Does it play an equally important role in your own life?
Yes. In an answer, yes. It's a good thing I'm as active as I am, because I love my food. And by the way, I love to cook. And if you want some recipes, go to my website. On the readers page of torieldridge.com, I have some awesome recipes and stuff. So yeah, go there and find out. But yes, I'm a total foodie. I love to eat. And so I really enjoy writing all those things with Lily. And a lot of things that she eats are things that are my favorites. Yeah, and this book, The Ninja Betrayed, oh my God, the food in Hong Kong. Oh yeah, you're gonna have fun with that.
Yeah, I was hungry through the whole thing.
I was hungry while I was writing it.
The next
Oh, by the way, do you know why food is so important? It's not just because I love to eat and she loves to eat and it's fun to read. It's because it's a cultural thing. If you want to understand somebody's culture or a community, eat their food. There is so much of us that we put into our food, and our love and our heritage, and want to learn a culture, eat their food. That's why it's in there. That's why it's so important.
That's wonderful. Our next question is for both of you again. It's: what have you read this year that you absolutely loved and would like to share with other readers? And
go JT. I have to narrow it down.
There are so many really great books, but there's one that's coming out here in a couple of weeks by, I think, a favorite of all of ours, Lisa Unger.
Oh my gosh, I so want to read that.
It's okay. It's absolutely brilliant. It's the best book she's ever written. It just, I rarely use the term elevate the genre, but it genuinely did. It's really fantastic.
Last Girl Goes.
And I'm sure,
right?
I'm sure Poison Pen's going to have plenty of signed copies of that for folks.
Oh, I am with you there. I recently read Rachel Housel Hall. She These Toxic Things that, you know, Rachel has such a distinct voice, you know, and she writes in this kind of, you know, real kind of contemporary colloquial. I mean, you want to talk about getting a sense of community, and Rachel, it just comes through. I just finished S.A. Cosby's Razorblade Tears, and of course, after Blacktop Wasteland, which I adored, you know, I had to read that. I read, House by P.J. Vernon, Bathhouse. That was.
You're listing my TBR. I've got.
Oh, sorry. Well, because I'm cool, I know what to read.
That's so funny. I've got all of those books lined up. I'm in the middle of a bunch of stuff.
Don Bentley. Don Bentley has become my favorite military action espionage thriller writer, and he's only been out in a year. So he came out with the Matt Drake series. The first one is without sanction. The second one is Outside Man, just came out. And in between these two, he comes out with the Jack Ryan Jr. Tom Clancy novel, Target Acquired. And he does all of this in 1 year with Penguin, you know, with Tom, God, oh my gosh, my dear friend, for crying out loud. Oh, I cannot believe if he's watching this, he's going to be like, seriously, Tori? Seriously?
He'll be fine.
You're blanking on my name. Anyway, you got to look up Don Bentley. You got to look up him. He's just badass.
That's great, because I'm always looking for good thrillers.
Yeah, and he's like a new writer, and he's just like, bam. Yeah, it's really great.
Cool.
The next question is for both of you as well, and this viewer asks, what helped save your sanity during the pandemic? So I guess that could be anything.
You know, I didn't have a problem with my sanity, to tell you the truth. My personal lifestyle did not change all that much. I'm pretty, I know I seem pretty gregarious and stuff like that, but I'm really a homebody. I really am. You know, the amount of times I go out of my house is probably to hike right out into the hills. And so, you know, I see more animals than I do people, aside from my husband and adult son. So we didn't go out very much. And so not going out didn't, you know, big thing. And then my husband had kind of already taken over the grocery shopping for some reason. So I'm like, power to you, keep on with that. And so I really locked into writing. I really wanted to, you know, finish up The Ninja Betrayed. I was working on a dystopian thriller. And then I had the editorial stuff for Dance Among the Flames. And then I had to go back for the editorial here. And then I had to rewrite the other thing. And I was just like on fire and focused and writing 6-7 days a week. So I think maybe that's what kept me sane. That, and I have a daily practice of meditating in the morning. I have a daily yoga practice. I got very into online yoga during the pandemic. And, you know, and I'm kind of a, you know, healthy food freak and lots of tea. So I had, you know, this nice mind, body, creative work balance. And I think all of that contributed to it. How about you, JT?
I've talked about this a number of times. Thank you for not apologizing for being creative during the pandemic.
Oh,
there is this terrible trend going on for folks who actually, you know, some people were able to create, some people weren't. That is not a zero-sum game. I mean, you don't need to apologize if you were creative during the pandemic. I mean, we were all locked in our houses, and some of us were already locked in our houses, and it wasn't that big of a change, right? My husband was absolutely hands down my sanity, though, because he's just funny, and I actually like him, and being locked in a house with him for 9 months was actually lovely. I miss him now that he's going back to the office a couple of days a week and stuff. I miss him when he's not here. I'm you know, so that he was definitely that. But it was funny, just the Zoom chats with the bookstores and the readers. Really, I did 38 events, I think.
Oh my.
Several with Poison Pen, actually, for the release of Her Dark Lies, because I couldn't go out on tour. And it was a blast. It was almost every night, maybe 2 times a day. I was staring into the camera, talking to people. And I am really an introvert to the point of being painfully shy. Mm-hmm. And I have a really hard time, you know, in public situations. I have a tendency to step on my own feet and say dumb things. And I really felt like that eliminated that stressor for me and let me get very, very real with people in ways that I would never be able to do it if I was in person. So it was a combination. I really loved doing the events with the stores and the readers. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And when you're talking about your spouse, my husband's a television film producer. He works out of the house. So we have been working, that's the other thing, right? We have been working together in the same house for decades.
Yeah.
We're used to each other. Yeah, and we have an adult son who is an editor and an introvert that hides out in his office and we're used to being together with him. So we didn't have any of that difficulty, which makes things so much easier. And like you, this is the second book that I've put out during a pandemic. A year ago, I put out The Ninja's Blade. And I was at Left Coast Crime getting ready I was nominated for the Lefty Award for the Ninja Daughter when California shut down and they sent us all home. So all three books, I've been like in the middle of this during pandemic. And it's kind of just, this is sort of a thing with me as a person, and I think also a thing with me as a ninja, right? Which is, if there's something I can do about something, I am all over it. I'm very proactive. I'm like on there early, taking care of it. But if there's something I cannot do anything about, I am all about acceptance and adaptation. And so, when it went into virtual, I was like, all right, we're going to do that. And we're going to have fun doing that. And it has been fun. And like you, I've just really enjoyed meeting with book clubs, and it's just been super fun. Yeah.
We're almost out of time, but before we have to close, I do want to ask each of you to, you've done this before, but remind readers about your new book, maybe give them a short teaser. And for you, JT, that would be 2 new books that you have.
Yeah. Okay, so I do. I have Her Dark Lies is my latest standalone thriller that is set in Italy, and y'all have signed copies of that. You also have signed copies of Tomb of the Queen, which is the first book under my pen name Joss Walker with Jane Thorne, CIA librarian.
I love that.
Her Dark Life is kind of a gothic, is that correct?
It is. It is a gothic. It is my homage to Rebecca. I was intrigued by the whole idea. I was listening to Rebecca when I was putting the book together, and something hit me. What if Rebecca hadn't actually died? What if she actually was alive and haunting our unnamed second Mrs. De Winter? And boom, there's that story. So not a giveaway, but that's
a great book. I love that book. It's a wonderful book. So people should go and buy that book.
And Tori, tell us just a teaser about The Ninja Betrayed.
Okay, so it's the third Lily Wong novel. That said, you can introduce yourself into Lily Wong's world through this book. That's just fine. Or you can read all 3 of them. So in any order is fine, or in order if you know you're going to read the whole series. And in this book, Lily and Ma, her mother, go to Hong Kong at the height of the pro-democracy struggle. And she dives into the dangerous world of triads and romance and corporate disaster. And there's just all manner of just fabulous things going on. I love this book. I hope you do too. Oh, by the way, fun thing, if you order it from the Poison Pen, I went in yesterday and I signed it. And you see this? This is my personal Ninja Warrior chop. And it has my Ninja Warrior name, which is Miyotoshi. And that means warrior of the unfathomable blade. And that name was given to me by my teachers for the depth of my seeking and the depth of my knowledge, which I thought was just lovely. And mixed in with that kanji is also our Katsumiyan dojo chop. So it's pretty special, and I put this on book plates, but for the Poison Pen, it's actually signed in the book.
Well, now I feel really special here.
Just saying, so, and if you want it personalized and you order right now, as soon as we hang up, I will drive back to the Poison Pen and write your name on it because I love you.
That's probably a good note to end things. I want to thank J.T. Ellison for joining us today with her wonderful questions, Tori Eldridge for her immense knowledge and gracious willingness to share thoughts with readers and viewers and everyone tuning in. And thank you for joining the Poison Pen for another virtual author event.
Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.